All right, perfect. So, number 21 of Caring Conversations, joining us for this one alongside myself is Mathew. We also have Dylan Sibbald, who is a Chelsea fan. Dylan, thanks for coming on. Thought I wanted
Thanks
to
for
get
having
you.
me.
No worries, man. Wanted to get your perspective from it, from your club. And we've been speaking before. You're into a little bit of finance and stuff, so on the business side of things, that'll be good too. And then we've got the legend that is Brother Ray, Mr. Adam Munro, making his debut appearance on the podcast. City fan. My plan was to have you on, ads, for the first time when City win the league this season. So you've got the
Yeah,
early call. You've got the early call up. We'll get you back on for that. But thanks for coming on too, mate. And it'll be good to hear it from your point of view from a City fan.
yeah. Nah, thanks for having me. It's good to join the conversation.
Class. So look, me and Mathew did one of these, a kind of reaction one on Monday, and I was definitely, like everyone was, a bit emotional.
Loved it, by the way. I loved that.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you've got to do it. You've got to do it, man. I was emotional because, like everyone, football was definitely getting taken from us, and your club was getting taken away from you, and kind of being turned into a franchise, thing, and it wasn't great. But as the days have gone on, and things have started to open up, and teams have pulled out, and the whole idea has kind of folded. It's been interesting to see the conversation shift to, well, maybe football does need to change a little bit, and I've been watching a lot of things like Talk Sport and Sky Sports and podcasts, and trying to, went and bought the Times today, and just to try and get a load of different views from people on everything. And I think the consensus is obviously that, the Super League wasn't a great idea. It was a terrible idea, but it's made us kind of stop and think that, we do need to do something to change football. And that's kind of what I wanted to make the topic on today. So how I'd like to start it, before I ask you, Adam and Dylan, on what your guys' views are from a City and a Chelsea point of view. I actually wanted to read out what the setup for the Champions League that UEFA has actually put forward is going to be, because I'm not too sure. Have you guys read into it a lot on exactly what UEFA are doing?
Nah, when did they release it?
They released it on Monday, literally the day after, these guys released their whole thing about the Super League.
Mm.
So I don't think it got the press as much as, the Super League stuff did, obviously. So a lot of people didn't see it. But I'll read out to you guys quickly what the setup's going to be for UEFA, and then we can kind of move on from there, because it is definitely interesting. So I've got this article here, so I'll just kind of read it word for word. The competition's current 125 game system will rise to 225, with the group stage no more, as clubs will be tasked with facing 10 different teams, 5 home and 5 away, in a single seeded league. Not too different from what the Super League's proposal was. A baby Super League concept, if you will, with UEFA in charge. The format will see the top 8 performing sides automatically qualify for the knockout rounds. Those who finish 9th to 24th will then compete in a two-legged playoff to move on to the last 16, with the remaining 12 clubs eliminated and with no drop down into the Europa League, which I actually quite like, so I think that's a load of shit anyway. The competition will then finish as the existing format does, but the competition guarantees each of the 36 clubs will play a minimum of 10 games, as opposed to the current 6. And then this is where it gets a bit interesting. A major sticking point is also how the new teams will qualify, with 2 to be given a place based on their historical European performances and considered if they finished their domestic campaign in a Europa League position. For example, Liverpool's club coefficient is currently 9th. So if the Reds finish the Premier League season outside the top 4, but still in a European place, they would be guaranteed entry into the Champions League. So that's interesting. That's not too far off of what the big clubs are trying to say anyway. So Dylan and Adam, I don't know who wants to go first, but what's your guys' views on hearing that, and then everything else with your club with the Super League?
The first thing that I think when I hear all that is, where are they going to fit in all these games?
I know,
because that is a huge amount of games compared to what we've currently got.
Agreed.
And I don't think the players, we've already seen Klopp's not been too happy this year with the amount of games he's had to squeeze in, obviously dealing with quite a lot of injuries. If they're proposing that you need to play another what 10 plus, 20 plus games a season. I just don't see it working.
Yeah, that's a fair point. What do you think, Dylan?
Again, my problem with the new reform is quite similar to the ESL in a sense that you need to earn your place at the top level, and why should other great teams, some other great countries be sacrificed just because Liverpool or Chelsea won a Champions League a couple of years ago? To me, it just screams that we've got to this position now. We don't want to let go of it. That's what it feels like to me. I mean, for example, I've had some conversations around when certain teams have gone bust. We know Barcelona are in a pretty horrific situation, but that's their fault. Do you know what I mean? Every club, every big club in the past, Nottingham Forest, they dominated Europe for a period. Now they're sitting in the Championship. You would never get Leicester in the Champions League if they hadn't have been to League One, dropped down, worked their way through the different leagues and come back up to earn their place in a Champions League spot. Now, this year they might get it, they might not get it, but that's a different story for a different day. But the fact that they were able to come from that position to get into that position, that's what football is all about. Yeah. As a football fan, what you rely on is hope. The magic of football is you go into the turnstiles on a Saturday. You can win or you can lose, and it can be amazing or it could be shit. But that's the magic of football. I mean, more locally, I support Hibs, so typically it's only one way that typically goes on a Saturday.
Yeah.
But even as a Chelsea fan, I've supported them since the Zola days, and watching them on Match of the Day Live, getting really excited about watching Chelsea. They were in the conversation, but they weren't a top team. But then if you look at like how we're looking to go to a closed off model, teams like City, if we go to a closed off model, they'll never be in another City, because unless someone takes a huge interest in a league like a Championship or a League One side, because 30, 40 years ago, they were dondering in the second tier of English football. Now they're probably, if not currently, one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Yeah.
So you lose that magic.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with both your points. Then Adam's point on the whole that's a lot of games, by the way. That's a lot of football games. By the way, and we're talking about Champions League, which is also possibly the highest level, which means the highest intensity as well. So that point is really, that's the first time I've heard this setup, by the way, and that's really took me by surprise. But the whole thing about you could possibly maybe finish in a Europa League spot and get in, is it not just another way of looking at it, that these big guys at the top are just trying to rig it for themselves? Yeah. And it's just, to me, football's gotten to the point where it's gotten so mad and so out of hand that these big guys have come together and they're like, we are putting out so much money as a football club because we're so big at the moment that if we don't get in the Champions League and get that money, we can't afford to do it. So they're looking at a situation where it's like, if these big clubs don't get in the Champions League, that's a lot of money for them. I was saying, Liverpool this year, it's huge if we don't get in the Champions League off the back of COVID hitting us and us losing money. It's even bigger. So both your points, 100% agree with. The games are far too intense, and I think to me it's just a whole nother example of how they're just trying to rig this and just keep themselves safe.
Is it?
I could agree more, because you think, take Liverpool for example, they don't get Champions League, there's a financial hit, right? They don't get Champions League, they can't attract the players they need to get back into the Champions League.
Exactly.
Right? So it's an ever-ending cycle. So you can see from John Henry's perspective that we need to stick where the money is so that we can continue to compete. That's football, quite frankly. And the fact that they're playing 10 games each, players already dropped. How many injuries we've had this year? Yeah. Ed Hazard's had about 6-7 injuries this year. He's playing a lot of football over the last couple of years. To add that many more games, that's six more games or something along those lines, additional to the current setup. And that's going to affect the quality of international football, because these boys are going to be playing every Saturday, every Wednesday, every Saturday, every Wednesday. And when it comes to international football, that's why I think there's an element of loss of interest, more so in the friendlies. that by the time it gets to actually playing these friendlies, the players are gassed. It's not a great standard of football.
Yeah. What do you like, Adam? Obviously, I've been looking at this. Like, we're talking about the elite clubs and money, and you needing to get in the Champions League and everything. Now, I look at how the current setup is within UEFA, FIFA, the Premier League, whatever you want to call it. And we'll get on to the Prem and people like Sky in a bit, but like the way I see it going, which I'm not trying to come at this from like a, oh, well, my team's not going to win a lot type view. This is how I see it going. How can anyone else in the Premier League, let's use that as an example, really keep up with City? Like, Chelsea have got Abramovich in terms of their money, which is fine. But if the game doesn't, if we don't stop and look to change the model, like, how can anyone compete with Man City? You can throw Chelsea into that mix because City's owners are so rich that they can fork out 200 million for Mbappe and pay him 500 grand a week, and it doesn't really dent their pockets. So the competition, like, I genuinely think that if it keeps going this way, let's say out of the next 5 titles, I can see City winning all 5, if not 4 of the 5, which they've already pretty much done. And obviously Liverpool, my team, won, the last one. But I think that's starting to become, anomaly. Can I say that right? Anomaly? You guys know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry, English isn't the best. So I don't know what you think about that, as from a City perspective. It's not your guys' fault that you have money, and Liverpool spend money too. We have money. We spent 75 on Van Dijk and 75 on Alisson, so we have it, but we don't have it in the abundance that you guys have or a PSG has.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like, the sport's moved to a point where money pretty much equals success. Like, let's be honest. If you look at the German league, there's 2 key players, and they're there every year because they've just got more money and more power.
Yeah,
and I think the game has kind of lost that part where a player would move to a club just for the name. I don't think it happens anymore. I mean, players will pretty much only move if they're going to get paid more.
Well, look at Real and Barca. They're the prime example of proving that point, right? They can't afford to keep up. They can't afford to pay what City pay. It doesn't matter if they have the bigger name in world football. City can get them. City can get them.
If you look at the flip side of it as well, if you look at Tottenham and Arsenal, who hate spending money, you cannot compete at the top if you do not spend money. Like, unless you have someone come in that is a new coach and he's young and he gets the best out of everyone. But honestly, like, this day and age, if you're like a Tottenham and Arsenal and you don't spend money, like, they're starting. I honestly give it a few years and they're just gonna start like going like this on the table if they don't start spending money. Because if you don't spend money now, you're like, look at even us, right? We had to spend money on Van Dijk, 75 mil, what a signing, all that kind of stuff. But my biggest thing with this is, if we look at the owners though, who you have in charge it's really, really important. And I wanted to ask you both this personally, because I think the Chelsea owner, I think he's done class. Like, during the middle of a pandemic, how much did you go and spend on all those players? Like,
100 million.
Mate, like, what else could you ask for? You know what I mean? Like I think that's ridiculous. And then if you look at Tottenham and Arsenal, and they're just not investing. Like, Tottenham went and sold Bale, Modric, all these kind of guys, and it never got invested back in to the squad. And I think when you hit that point, I think you're really going to start to struggle, because if you cannot get anywhere near the top if you don't spend money anymore.
I think though the impact of Abramovich and the City group has been much greater though, because if you take City for example, they've built flats in Manchester, they've built a brand new facility, they've pumped money into making the Etihad a better stadium. They've done really good work for the community. And Abramovich as well, during the pandemic, booked all those hotel rooms for NHS staff. So like, they are, if you take football out of it and look at their actual impact in the local communities, they've done a very, very good job. And I think Abramovich, certainly for me, since he's come in, he's the reason that we are even at the table of the ESL to say, do you want to come and join? Because without him, we wouldn't be in that situation. And I think the same goes for City. These are I think there's a big difference between these owners and the American owners. I think Abramovich, I think City Group understand football. If not, they've got, look at when was bought over, they brought all the Barcelona execs across with them to say, okay, we've got a ton of money, we're going to spend a huge amount of money here. We need the best football people here to navigate the club. Now look what they are. Their second team could probably win the Premier League as well. They are that good a squad.
It's a joke.
And the same with Chelsea. Abramovich. There's an odd player here and there. He goes, I want that player. You go and get me that player. I want that player. But he's been absolutely. And to be fair, he's taken a lot of stick for the approach. The mood kind of changed when he had Lampard, but Lampard sort of unfortunately fell into the situation where it became untenable. So, he's made decisions at the right time, at the right points. I think the difference with the American owners is it's been widely touted in the press. They don't understand this whole, you can be at the top, but then you can have nothing. They don't understand that because there's always been that same. Imagine being a Cleveland Browns fan for the last 15 years. It's dreadful. If there was a relegation or promotion, that institution would have probably died. But then they get a couple of good draft picks. They build up a couple of capital. They get OBJ. They get Baker Mayfield. Now they're a tier team now. And actually, they've got an opportunity to become potentially a playoff contender. But they don't quite understand that. Which is why I think Abramovich and Mathew have done a really good job, not only just from a football perspective, from like a community piece as well, and what the best of the local players.
Yeah, just on that though. So you obviously were an Abramovich fan before all this. How do you feel now with the whole ESL situation? Are you still backing him? Are you getting him out my club, or how do you feel about it?
It's interesting you say that, right? Because I have been watching the social media reaction very carefully. I'm seeing Levy out, I'm seeing Kroenke out, the Glazers out, and I'm seeing FSG out. I've not seen anything Abramovich out or the City Group or Sheikh Mansour out. I think the Abramovich. Now, again, this is all rumours. I read in the press, don't know if it's true. But the reason that we pulled out so quickly was because he was livid. Absolutely livid, supposedly, to the Chelsea exec because they did not consult him enough, or whether it be the Chelsea executive committee or the other owners, completely blindsided by the reaction to what they've done. And I think from Chelsea's and City's perspective, again, as it's reported with all the ins and outs, that they were the last two clubs to agree to do this. I think one, they don't really need the money. I think initially, but the worry is. And you said beforehand, if you miss the Champions League, you lose out on money and you lose out on players. I think the same thinking was around the ESL that, well, bollocks, everyone else is doing this. We are a top club. If we don't join this, they're going to get £300 million more revenues per year. They're smaller players and become bigger than us, and we'll just fade away into obscurity. I think that's the reasoning behind it, and I think that's why they've not had as big backlash as FSG or the Glazers, for example.
Yeah, I think that. I think you're right there, man, and I think that, like, we talked a lot about money there, and like you're right, and I just think that it's interesting because Chelsea have had money for a while and have always spent, but the beauty of the setup right now is that actually doesn't always guarantee you success. Do you know what I mean? Like Chelsea don't win the league every year, and I know I just said that City could dominate, but they've definitely taken it to another level with the wages they pay and the fees they pay. They've taken it to another level. Abramovich maybe could compete. I don't know. Potentially not, because it sounds like the City owners are mental. But and it's important you mentioned all the good things that City have done and Chelsea have done. And, I think as well for me and Mathew and other Liverpool fans is you can't forget, the good things that FSG have done too. The way they've ran the club has been actually relatively good. And yeah, they've misstepped a couple of times in trying to up the ticket prices, and then they pulled themselves back. And there's a couple of moments, but overall, I would say that the consensus of Liverpool fans before this was FSG have actually been all right with us. We like the way the club's ran, and they've made a really big mistake. And I think the question is for everybody is like, has this mistake crossed the line where it is no longer repairable? But listening to Simon Jordan on TalkSport, who used to run Palace, his point of view is interesting. and he's spot on, is like, run them out the club, fine. You're just going to get another set of billionaires that come in and buy you anyway. So is it like you're not going to get, it's not like someone from Liverpool that breathes and dies and loves Liverpool to death is going to buy the club and do everything the right way. That's an idealist world. It's not going to happen. So I don't know if the answer is to get them out. I mean, I don't know about you, Mathew, from a Liverpool point of view, or you, Adam, from a City point of view. At first, I was like, get them out. And now I'm like, well, they have made a big mistake. It was wrong. But if we get them out, what does it change?
Yeah.
To me, there's just a slight divide in the fans, because you have your fucking like diehard fans, right? Like your fucking diehards. And I feel like there's obviously a big group of them. And I feel like those fans are almost like, nah, fuck him, get him out because he fully disrespected our club. But then you kind of have like, not saying we're not diehard fans, but you know what I mean? Like we're not at fucking Stamford Bridge and Anfield and every weekend and going to the away days and all that. Like, so I think there's like a divide. For me, what I've seen is a divide in fans, and just the diehard ones are like, fuck him, like get him out. This is our club, without really much thought process behind it though, because obviously the owners kind of stabbed them in the back and they're kind of like, nah, fuck you. But I personally feel like I don't think getting rid of them does the club any good at all at that point.
I think it's on the Simon Jordan thing, Josh. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. On the Simon Jordan thing, I couldn't agree more, because they're talking about get them out. They're not going to walk away and say you can have that for free. You know, to be fair, FSG won the fucking lottery. They bought it off the Gillettes, right, from a 100 million quid or something like that. And then it's currently worth about £4.6 billion.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? They've won the fucking lottery. So to be fair, if they did cash out, they'd be happy as Larry. But they're not going to, because, you know, Liverpool fans simply, I don't know how much you all chip in, like 15 quid each or whatever it might be, right? But it's going to be impossible unless you've got a real Liverpool fan that's got a spare 5 billion quid. I can't see happening.
Nah, and sorry, Ads, I'm going to let you speak as well after this. And you're spot on, Dylan, is that everyone's like, oh, we should do the German model of 51%. That ship sailed when Abramovich bought Chelsea. That ship sailed when your club got bought. You can't turn around to these guys that own a business and say, right now, you just need to give 51% of it up. It's not how business works, right? So that ship sailed. That's not going to happen. There's no way. We've gone well past that, Adam. But there's definitely an opportunity for change.
Nah, definitely. I agree with like all of your points, to be fair, especially yours, Josh, that who else would come in and buy it? And chances are it's going to be someone just as, if not more so, business minded that's probably going to care even less about the fans, because he's not been there for however many years. So I don't think that's the right solution to say get them out the club. But yeah, as you say, something needs to change, because the Super League was effectively just going to be Moneyball. It was just for business. Yeah. And it was going to get rid of all the upsets and like the happy points that everyone loves about football. It would have just been gone. So
it would have been.
Josh, Matt, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
John Henry's the only one that's come out visually apologised, right? Rest of behind carefully worded statement that they probably spent a whole lot of money getting lawyers to draft. What was your view on the apology? Because I've got a view on it as well, but I just want to hear your view first.
Go on, Mathew.
Well, for a start, I was glad that he was the first one to come out and do it. I generally think that Jurgen Klopp has had a phone call with him or whatever, and I genuinely believe that Jurgen Klopp understands the club and understands the fans, and I have a feeling that he has told him, you owe me, like, we need to be the first ones you need to be the first one to put your face out there and apologise. And I think the apology, I didn't really know what to expect from the apology, because it's just kind of like it's just basically like I'm sorry, like I made a mistake. It's literally what it is, and it's all he can do as well. It's all he can do. So the apology itself, I kind of knew it was coming, and I knew that it was going to be like that. But I'm glad that he was the first one was the first one to do it and show face.
Yeah, I agree with Mathew on what he said there. I think one thing for me, man, is like, and I've been through this a little bit as well, coaching in America on the youth side of the game, you know, with the clubs that I was at, and I saw, you know, new clubs come along. And my big thing is that and this day and age with like social media and everything, I'm really fed up with these like fake bullshit PR things to just like make things go away. So like, yeah, well done. You came out, like, I respect that. You were the first to do it, but where do you go here from now? Like, do we not see him again for a long time? Or is he really going to be like, I fucked up here. What can I do to make this better? And like you said, Dylan, all the other clubs just release statements. I mean, I'd be fuming if Liverpool just did that. That's just a PR move to be like, we're sorry, get this out of the way. You don't really care. So that's my only... I'm kind of going to sit here and see how this unfolds over the next few weeks, few months into the summer. Like, you know, I've heard like, you know, a lot of Liverpool fans say, John Henry, well done, but you need to now be coming to Liverpool, sitting down with these fan groups, talking to them, maybe even getting filmed, interviewing, admitting you made a mistake, do it sincerely. But we're fickle, right? Because if he goes away, but Liverpool sign Mbappe for 200 million in the summer, then, you know, what happens? We're really fickle. But I just think that before you say your thoughts on it, Dylan, I just think that point I just made there about Liverpool signing Mbappe, we need to be careful as fans that we don't forget about all this and that when something like that happens, because then we're just heading down the same road we're heading down now.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I actually saw that on Twitter this morning. Mbappe was trending. How do we look? Yeah. And it was, we will forgive FSG if you sign Mbappe, which goes completely against what you just fought for. But yeah, your point on the PR piece was what I was going to mention. You notice in the background there was yellow roses. Yellow roses are the flower of forgiveness.
Yeah, right, okay.
He was also wearing a Gillette. What was the name of the previous owner?
Gillette, yeah.
Exactly. So I thought it was really well thought out, because he's got flowers of forgiveness. Now, this could be conspiracy theory type shit, right?
I like that. I like conspiracy stuff.
He's got yellow roses, the flower of forgiveness in the background. He's wearing a Gillette to remind you all of how shit you had it before he came in and sorted it. He came in and made you a club. Made your experience as a fan better by way more.
Yeah.
So on your point, it's all PR. It's now saving face. And to be fair, I was actually flabbergasted. I don't know if you follow Fabrizio Romano on Twitter.
Yeah.
But he was tweeting the quote from the Perez interview last night, and he's still, it's like a dog with a bone. He's still going on about it, and he still stands behind it. So it'd be interesting to see. I think AC Milan, despite them coming out saying that we're not going to be doing it at this point in time, I understand that they're still heavily involved in talks, which of course they are. They've done fuck all for the last like 5-6 years, because again, it's one of those things where AC Milan, great football club, do not get me wrong, fantastic history, and I used to love watching AC Milan play.
Yeah.
They were at the pinnacle of the game. They won Champions League. Was it 2007? I think they won the Champions League. 2006 one year. They won it the next year. And, you know, that's what football is. Like, you know, you got to the top. You made some poor transfer decisions. Maybe you sold a player that you shouldn't have. Maybe you've got into a bit of financial bother. You're back where you started. I mean, Juventus as well, the cheek of it. You know, a club that was involved in a match-fixing scandal a couple of years ago was relegated to the second division. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't understand. Like, yes, you were, and actually on that premise, think about AC Milan, they've won loads of Champions Leagues and stuff. Where was Ajax as a player?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, or even Celtic and Rangers, man.
Celtic Rangers, yeah.
They're huge too. It's interesting, eh? But I wanted to move on to and talk about like the broadcasters, the Skies, the Prem, and everything. And again, I've got like an article. I was looking up this stuff today, and I found an article on the Herald from 2019 in March by a guy called Graham Ruthven. I hope I said his name right. But the title was, and this was on Scottish football, but I read and I was like, oh, this is really where we're at now. And the title was Why Scottish Football Has Made a Mistake Tying Itself to Sky Sports. So again, I'll just read out this little bit for you, and it really got me thinking about where we're at now. He's put, it gives an idea of looming revolution in sports broadcasting. For decades, football, both in Scotland and across Europe, has been dictated to two by the big satellite TV companies. Indeed, the sport we see in front of us today has been molded by the billions pumped in by the likes of Sky and BT. Plates are shifting beneath the sport, though. Viewing figures for live sporting events have stagnated and even fallen in some cases as fans move away from traditional media and new media giants like Amazon, who will broadcast live Premier League football from next season, which disrupts the status quo. It's somewhat unfortunate then that the SPL has only just tied itself to traditional media until 2025, handing exclusive broadcast rights to Sky Sports. This deal had been years in the making, with almost existential importance placed on boosting the coffers of Scotland clubs with TV money, but the timing of this deal exposes an extreme lack of foresight. And in the final bit here, there is a broadcast revolution coming and Scottish football threatens to be left behind. I thought that the fact that that's from 2019 is eerie how right it is now. What do you think about that, Ads? Like, I've for a while been baffled that there's no streaming service for football because I know why, but I think it would save money for fans if you put a streaming service on. And I guess that's what that guy is talking about, is that day is coming. And the fact that, for Scottish football's point of view, they've stuck with Sky until 2025 could see them get left behind again. But what do you think of like the whole, streaming idea and maybe changing it and moving on to just being on Sky?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at pretty much every other way of viewing sport and television, pretty much everything's moved to streaming services. Yeah. How many people do you know that really watch live telly anymore? Not very many.
Nope.
And it is purely because of that fact. It's more accessible, it's cheaper for the consumer, and it just works out better for every party pretty much. I think what's happened with Sky is obviously when I think back to when I was watching football when I was a teenager, you watched every single game of football on Sky, and there was no other way to watch it. And obviously, as you're saying, that's what Scottish football have continued to do. But I think as obviously BT, Amazon are coming into the game, Sky will just be trying to safeguard themselves as much as they can. Trying to tie leagues into long contracts so that, as you say, they can't get out and sort of go with the flow, because it's inevitable that it is moving that way.
Mathew, Dylan, what's your guys' thoughts on it?
I think it's always going to evolve, isn't it? And in 10, 20 years, we're going to be talking about the next thing to a streaming service. Yeah, like the way the technology evolves these days, it's so fucking quick that this stuff's always going to happen. And to be fair, it's a bit of a shame. But with the whole thing with the Scottish thing that you're saying there, did they not maybe see that coming or think of that before they signed that deal?
Well, I don't think this is to go off that point, which is, I'm glad you said it because I wanted to bring this up. I think like anything, and Adam and Dylan, you guys are maybe more privy to comment on this than me and Mathew, but in terms of a business point of view, I think Sky and the Premier League have just got relaxed that they've had no competition and have looked at it and gone, there's no need to change. Why would we change what the setup is? Because who's going to come along and challenge us? And I think they've missed the boat now on the streaming service stuff. I think they missed the boat. Someone's going to do it. Eddie Hearn, I saw today or yesterday, has signed a deal with, I'm going to say this wrong, but I think it's DAZN, D-A-Z-N. He signed a deal with them and is leaving Sky. That's a streaming service for boxing. That currently costs £1.99 a month, by the way. Wow. So that don't get me wrong, as that grows and he brings along his bigger fighters to that price will go up. Of course it will. But it's not going to be 120 quid a month or whatever you pay for Sky. It's going to be 20 quid a month, you would think, top. So it's interesting you say that, Mathew. I just think that they've thought, we're sound, they've rested on the laurels, they've got comfortable and they've not innovated. And now this has happened and someone's going to come along and do something.
Well, I think we're not linked to the TV rights for the Super League. Do you know what I mean? It's a big threat to Sky. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you say that. I want to briefly talk about, I guess, my thoughts on the broadcasting and moving to the streaming services. Perez came out and said 16 to 24-year-olds aren't watching football. I fondly remember watching Champions League for free on ITV. during the weeks when I was growing up. Do you know what I mean? That was free to watch. But this then leads to the next thing, which is the barriers that these broadcasters put in place to actually watch football. Now, there's an argument that yes, you'll pay 40, 50 quid to go to a game, right? Fair enough, that's understood. But you are seeing that live, which is part of the trade-off, because you wouldn't, you see concerts on YouTube, for example. Do you know what I mean? So you pay for that privilege to go see it live. The hypocrisy of Sky blows my mind, because what the ESL are doing is exactly what the Premier League did in 1992, and they closed off and made it a closed shop. I think they got a bit of a scare when BT came into play and said we want to do something on the sport aspect. I remember back from all those articles talking about the size of the European football contract, and that Sky were almost flabbergasted. Down to your point, that they were caught napping. They had it so sweet for so long, but they were essentially so big that no one could challenge them. So to a company like a BT, like an Amazon, that has made their money up, very successful, and say, we'll pump money into this and we'll build something of it. I think competition is absolutely key. I would love, to be fair, there's an element there, right? So, more competition, which potentially mean that you get different leagues on different services, which then potentially mean that you're paying for more separate services. Obviously, the Sky premise in the past has been buy your Sky Sports package. That includes your Scottish football, your English football, and previously the Champions League games.
Yeah,
that boat's been completely rocked. So, it's, I guess they're all kind of as bad as each other. I would like to see more competition, but they talk about, obviously Gary Neville is his own person, but they talk about the greed of all what the ESL are trying to do. When you're putting financial barriers in the way of people wanting to watch football, no wonder there's so many illegal streams of football, because it's so inaccessible. So, I mean, I don't know what the answer is.
No.
If someone knew the answer was, they'd be a very rich person. But it's I was a bit annoyed at the hypocrisy of Sky Sports, saying it's greed, it's about money. What we've done for the last 20 years, the exact same thing, more than that. So yeah.
Let's not forget about Sky trying to charge us during a pandemic, like fucking 20 quid a game or something like that. Like, let's not forget about that. They're sitting there absolutely hammering these folks, saying football can't all be about money, money, money. And a fucking pandemic hits and fucking half the country is unemployed and has no money. And then they're like, oh yeah, it's 20 quid to watch fucking Burnley, fucking Fulham. And it's like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, exactly, right? It's like to stay on this topic and to maybe take it back to what these big clubs that we're trying to think to do in the Super League, Adam. I saw something on Twitter yesterday from a guy called the Tactical Times, and he actually looked into the American sports and what the broadcasting people pay for that. And basically, he's put last month, CBS, Fox, NBC, and ESPN signed an 11 to 12-year deal to broadcast the NFL for over $110 billion. That's $10 billion a year. Sky and BT currently pay around $2.3 billion per year to show the Premier League games. Forbes report the previous NFL deal signed for 8 years in 2014 was for just below $30 billion, around $3.7 billion per year. $10 billion per year shows how crazy money is going in sport. So you could see why they were probably trying to do that, ads, because certainly the American guys were like, look, we have this model. Look what we get from NFL. Fucking let's go.
Yeah, that is ridiculous money that
That's insane money, man.
They've got over in the States. And do you know what I don't understand is, obviously America's got some huge businesses and there's ridiculous sponsorship money and whatever. But do they just have like a different fan base that find it entertaining regardless of what they're being shown? Because I know the main reason the Super League failed and didn't go ahead was because fans were just so upset that there wouldn't be a solid competition like the Premier League. And I'm guessing, obviously most sport in America is like that. So are their fans happy just sort of having this subpar competition that's just covered with sponsorship and adverts?
Well, they don't have, I mean, certainly from when I've been there, Mathew can speak on it too. Like they don't have the concept of relegation and like the Champions League spots and everything. So they don't they don't really understand it, and that's just what they've always grown up with and they've always had. Like Dylan said earlier, you can be a bit shit, but there's no repercussions to it. You just kind of come bottom. But actually, the American system is that when you come bottom, you get first draft pick. So then you can work your way back up, which so I just think that they just don't. That's just not the way they've had their setup. So they just they don't they don't feel what we feel. And again, you have to remember, football's older than basketball. It's older than American football and all that, right? It's got a rich history in it. So I don't know if you think any different to that, Mathew, but that's kind of my thought.
They don't know any better. Like they're so blindsided. Like they're born into the culture, the American culture, and then they grow up with it. They have no idea like how the system over here works. They're just blindsided. They have no idea, so they just think this is how America does it. It must be the best way to do it.
And by the way, from a business point of view, their system actually works better than the Prem system from a business point of view, because they're constantly guaranteed this money every year. So I can understand. I don't think it's right, but I can understand why these billionaires have gone, this is way better for business.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. And you can imagine a lot of their business, obviously the few American owners, but they'll understand the American model back to front. Yeah. And I think they would know if they got away with it, it would have made them so much money. But I don't think they quite considered the difference between the consumers that they're trying to market this to. Because, I mean, I've supported City for, say, the best part of, I don't know, 16, 17 years. Yeah. And I was gutted when they announced this, because I knew it would be the end of fair competition. I can only imagine how an 80-year-old Man United supporter feels that's lived their whole life just worshipping United and seeing them go through Alex Ferguson and all this stuff, to just be told that there's a good chance that all of that will pretty much mean nothing.
Yeah. No, you were going to say something, Dylan, sorry.
Yeah, I've actually got a theory why the American model works. And if you've ever watched ESPN and you watch Stephen A. Smith, right? Even if you're a shit team, they dramatize it, they make it entertaining. They make it entertaining that you're bad. And then what that also does, it then creates storylines. Beforehand, if you become last in the NFL, you get the first round draft pick the next year. There's a story. This young quarterback, 6'5", has got an arm like an absolute cannon. He's going to be the savior of this franchise, and it builds up all this story and hype around it. But because the complexities of salary cap and the New York Giants, even though they're probably or the Cowboys are the biggest NFL franchise, they can't do what City and Chelsea do and go out and buy the best players. It's like a running circle. You can be astute with your pickups in terms of who you want to get in free agency and who you pick up in the draft and make those choices.
Yeah. But
because it's so easy for teams to crumble, and the New York Knicks used to be a fantastic basketball team. Now they're a laughing stock. But the fact that they're a laughing stock, it makes entertaining TV. I mean, I watch basketball and I watch the NFL, so I do pay quite close attention to the ESPN Sports channel on YouTube. And it's like every day, it's like Stephen A. and Max Kellerman, they're going at it. But it actually makes it entertaining. So but I don't think that can't be replicated in football, because the feeling of football is already cemented. And the fact that you can be a Gretna, I know obviously they're not the best example because they eventually did it off, but they went from the second league in Scotland and then being in the Scottish Cup final.
Yeah,
how amazing would that be? Your little small club builds and builds and builds. Make the right decisions. You get the right players in over a period of time. You get the right coaches. You get to this situation. You're like, oh my god, this is the pinnacle for me. Like, I've supported this team for like 15, 20 years. I mean, I'm imagining for you guys. You guys weren't alive when Liverpool last won a Premier League.
Nope.
I can imagine the Cannon household went fucking AWOL when it was finally announced. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the moments that you truly like live for, a proper football fan. But I feel like in America, I mean, there is elements of like dramatization here, but it's nowhere near as much. It's almost like a comedy show. Stephen A. Smith, the way that he's very vibrant, very eccentric, and that makes it to watch. And actually, because they've got great personalities, talking about the teams and commenting about the teams, then actually it makes that game because that afterwards Stephen A. Smith's going to go on a rant about how bad his New York Knicks are. But I don't think that feeling that it has. I feel like a lot of the drama and the feeling of is manufactured, whereas football, the feeling of football is something so much different. It's not you can't manufacture the feeling of your team wins a trophy or something like that. Do you know what I mean? It's completely different in my opinion.
Yeah, in my opinion though, we've asked for this though because we've allowed these venture capitalists to come in and take over our clubs, and it's now became about money instead of the actual competition side in the football. So we've kind of asked for this by letting these people come into our clubs and do like, what else would we expect? Like what? Like as Liverpool owners, we didn't think that FSG were going to come in and their main mission wasn't going to be to not make money. Like the Super League, in my eyes, their concept and their idea, I actually think it was a really good idea from a business point of view. Take away the whole football and competition. Like I think if they got away with that, holy shit! Like
that
was, like I went. Like so, me and Josh spoke about this, right? And we think that it would have obviously started in Europe or whatever the case was, but obviously would have went global, would have went America, China, Russia. We would go to like a pre-season. Man United would be playing like fucking LA Galaxy, went to like a pre-season to watch them play at Stanford or whatever. It's like a fucking 100,000 seater stadium and they sell out like that. Like and fucking like the fucking like Rooney didn't even play, like it was back then, like, but if they were to do that, it would have made so much fucking money. But I really believe that we've asked for this because we have let these venture capitalists come into these clubs in the country, and it's just completely business model and completely has to be money.
That's why you need an independent regulator, I think. I think not even just in England, Europe, FIFA, glad was set. They've got found out and they got booted well and truly. Platini as well got found out for being. These people I've seen the opportunity and they've grabbed the money. Again, unless you've got an independent regulator that has these checks and balances, because if you had an independent regulator, perhaps Wolverhampton would never have been in the Premier League. There would be no Glazers, be no FSG, and without that financial, not the financial regulation, the independent regulator, because the FA are then sort of saying, well, we'll talk to these clubs, but got a vested interest. Some of these clubs have some of their best English players in them. So how badly are they going to punish these teams, knowing it's going to affect the people that play for them as a country?
Yeah.
And I think the whole thing that started this for me was even the ESL, was the fact that Mino Raiola suggested that Haaland get €1 million a week.
So
fucked. That is ridiculous money. But perhaps with a salary cap, with an independent regulator, 2 good steps in the right direction that I think they need to consider.
Yeah, I think we're almost lucky as football fans that it's happened this way, that they've tried to make it happen so quickly that it's just fallen on its arse. Because I feel like if they were a bit smarter about it and they did it more gradually, so that people didn't quite notice how big an impact it was going to have, they would have got away with it. But I think because they just announced it suddenly and it was such a massive change to what we've currently got, it's not worked out. And as a football fan, that's definitely the best scenario in my opinion.
Yeah, and the reason I wanted to do this with you guys is, like I said before we started recording, is that their idea wasn't the right idea, but in terms of having the idea is good, if that makes sense. Like we need to have an idea of how to push this forward within the next few years, or else. Mathew, you've said this many times. I mean, everyone is, but these clubs lose money anyway. The amount of money they must be losing right now with COVID, they've probably looked at it and gone, And maybe they've looked and gone, we're actually saving these clubs here if we do this. Obviously, it then benefits them longer term, but they've maybe thought like, the way the system is going is not viable. But before we kind of wrap up, boys, I'm just conscious of the time here. It's coming up to an hour. I was thinking about this the last couple of days, kind of checked myself as a football fan. And I thought this, and I mentioned this to Greg, and Greg agreed. See, when the Champions League's on, right? And let's say you've got Real Barca in the group, yeah? And that's the game that's on TV. That's on BT Sport 1. And then on BT Sport 2, you've got Mitchell and Mulder. Which one do we all tune into?
That's true. Although, to be fair, my argument against that is, I mean, yes, it'd be. I think the first 2 seasons, if the ESL went ahead, obviously about the backlash, went ahead, people would be watching it 100%.
Yeah.
I was saying this to Mathew when we talked about it today. There, would that not get stale? Would that not get stale? Like the whole glory and the sort of the awe of the Champions League is the fact that we get to see Real Madrid play Bayern Munich in a semi-final. It means something. It's a big game. 2 Colossus clubs coming together for one big game. I'm tuning in because I'm watching that. That's gonna be, that's a great thing to watch. But Real Madrid playing Bayern Munich to see who finishes third in the Super League, which win on that, then what's the point?
Yeah,
I think it would get stale eventually.
Yeah.
I think it would take half a season to get stale.
I mean, I think it would get stale for us. I don't think it gets stale for the global support that aren't rooted in it like we are, right? Like
it still sells.
It still sells. It doesn't get stale for America. It doesn't get stale for China. It doesn't get stale for the global market. No, because that's what they want to see. And the American, which we've talked about, the system of how they run things is always the big teams playing against each other. That it sells. And I think that, yeah, here it wouldn't. Don't get me wrong. After a season, we'd be like, it was way better when they just met each other once in a semi, like you said, Dylan. But that's the purest point of view. And I think someone said that, like, our point of view is to them and is, if they look at the numbers, the 1%. They want the other 99%, which will tune into that. So it's a good debate. But like I say, to kind of wrap this up, I just think it's interesting that they've come out with an idea and it's almost made everyone take a step back and go, that idea is wrong, but we do need to change. And it'll be interesting to see if we do change. And I've seen a lot of fan groups, especially the Spirit of Shankly, that are like putting out posts saying, look, we're coming for FIFA and UEFA and the Premier League too, because you got Sky and everyone, right? Like, you guys are not the good guys here. You have kind of done the same thing, but kept the soul and at least kind of kept it a bit interesting, but you're not much better. So it's really, really interesting. The last thing I wanted to touch on too, I don't know if you guys have anything you want to add on this before we wrap up, but players themselves are earning so much money now. And with Instagram and social media and everything, like, I think we know it, we do know it, but players are, Mbappe is just as much a celebrity now as Leonardo DiCaprio is, or I don't even know who you want to name, any celebrity, right? An actor, whatever. They've become themselves through social media a brand and a name, and football's not really caught up to that either, and that's the reason why Mbappe cost you £200 million, because in shirt sales, he's probably earning you 500 million. So football, the players now have almost become, if anything, bigger than the club. Like, I saw today that Bruno Fernandes says he'll sign a new deal, but only if Paul Pogba gets one. Like, wait, what? So it's like, is Bruno getting to call the shots now at Man United on who gets a new deal? But
Probably, they fucking rim him. But
Bruno has the pool. He's Man United's best player. So what do United do? If United sell him, they're fucked, because they're not going to be as good without Bruno Fernandes. He's probably one of, if not the best player in the league, certainly at the moment. So, players have now become almost bigger than the club. They become the brand, which is interesting. And they don't seem to really mind, which I'm not saying it's their fault. They're not turning down a 500 grand a week contract, So that's not helped it.
Case in point, Messi. Look what happened to him in the summer. He alludes to leaving, and the whole Barcelona fan base and the club just completely go into absolute chaos. Same with Ronaldo. He calls all the shots because he goes to a club, he makes them their transfer fee. In about, I think actually I covered his own transfer fee in a day. I think that actually I saw that reported somewhere, just from shirt sales. That is crazy.
Yeah,
but that gives him the power because money brings the power.
Yeah, 100%. Just Josh, before we finish, I've got two questions for both of you. First of all, Dylan Abramovich, keep him in or get him out?
Keep him in. I love him.
Adam, City owners, in or out?
Yeah, I'd say keep them in, just based on Josh's point earlier that if not them, then who else? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good point. And then
I think Mathew, just quickly, what I would say is, what I would love to see is actually these 6 clubs coming together, building a pot of money, investing it into grassroots and investing it into the lower leagues. I think that would help them save face.
Oh, you're dreaming if you think they're going to do that, mate. Fucking hell. All right, last question for both of you. Dylan, top 4, quick. What's it going to finish?
City, United. I'm going to back Tommy Tuchel because he's the boy. We're finishing 3rd. And I'm going to give place.
Who'd you say, Liverpool?
Yeah.
Get in there. You're invited back. Adam, who you going?
I'm very sorry, but I'm going to leave Liverpool out, unfortunately. I'm going to say...
You can get to fucking...
City, United, Leicester, Chelsea.
Leicester, I think we'll bottle it like they have done last week.
Bottle jobs.
They'll bottle it.
I hope they bottle it, lads. I hope so. And Liverpool get in there, that would be fantastic. But
come on.
I think that's all we've got. That's about an hour. Again, conscious of the time. It's a nice day, so I know everyone probably wants to get out and do something before it gets too cold. Do you guys have anything else you want to add?
Not for me.
Class. Well, look, Dylan, Adam, thank you very much. Mathew, of course, again, thank you for doing this. I actually wanted to finish this off with a wee quote that apparently, is, if anyone's seen Moneyball, is in the movie at the end, but apparently it is a true quote from John Henry. And when I saw this, it really got me thinking about what's going on right now. And the quote is, which he says to Billy Beane, Brad Pitt in the movie, when he asks him to come over to the Boston Red Sox, he says, "I know you're taking it in the teeth, but the first guy through the wall, he always gets bloody, always. This is threatening not just the way of doing business, but in their minds, it's threatening the game," which I think sums up the whole super idea for everyone right now. So we'll finish on that, boys. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Cheers, lads.
Appreciate it, and we'll get you back on again at some point.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Cheers, boys.